after I've filled my spindle with my plied yarn, I'm going to put it in my lovely spindle holder, and I've got a little clothespin just to put on the end so the spindle doesn't come out. I'll put this on the ground, and I'm going to use a Niddy-Noddy. This tool has the best name ever, Niddy-Noddy. And there's a poem that goes with it, and I only always remember the first verse, not the second verse. But it's Niddy-Noddy, Niddy-Noddy, 2 arms, 1 body. So what I want to do when I use the Niddy-Noddy is I like to just hold the yarn in the center, and I'm just going to bring the yarn around the Niddy-Noddy. So really all I'm doing is I'm making a big loop. If I held this up, you could just see it was a big loop. But this just makes a more organized loop than rolling it around my arm would. It always goes on the outside of the arm to the next one below, and then to that side. You're not going to cross it like that. You'll always want to keep this area uncrossed. And you're going to go down, and then back up, and down again. Till you come to the end of your skein. Now, if you're really lucky, your skein will end up so the 2 strands of yarn come together like this, and then you can tie a knot. In reality, mine never do. I always have one end of the yarn over here and one end over here. If that happens, what I do is I just take a piece of scrap yarn and tie it on the ends so they do come together, so I can tie the yarn into the bow. Now, it's still not ready to take off the Niddy-Noddy. What you'll want to do is you'll want to put a little tie or 2 on the yarn. I'm just going to take that strand, wrap it around one side of my skein, and I'm just going to again tie an overhand knot, make a loop, bring the tails from underneath through the loop, and pull it tight. These bows are very long. I generally would not make them quite so long, but that's the way the yarn ended up. So if I tied a loop on this side, for a skein this small, I would probably just tie the loop on the opposing side. So I have one loop here, so I'm going to the far side and I'm going to put a loop on that side as well. If I had a really big, thick skein with lots of strands, what I would do is I would put a tie on each strand. So I'd have a tie here and here and here and here. I like to make my loops really big and loose because if they're too tight, at some point I will have to cut them out. And I'm sometimes not very graceful with scissors. So I would rather have a big loop so I can cut them way out here instead of accidentally cutting my yarn. The other thing is if I'm going to dye this yarn, I would like to have a nice loose loop so I don't have a little area of resist. If that tie is too tight, it's going to act like a little area of tie-dye. Now I can take this yarn off the Niddy-Noddy, and it's going to curl back on itself, and that's because the yarn that I used, it had been on those balls for quite a bit of time, and my plying twist is very active. So the next step will be setting the twist.